I get to Vach, a heilige Vach to everybody. So we'll start with the Moedige Maisa. The Maisa goes like this. When the heilige Steipler, the Steipler, for those of you that don't know, I'm sure you do, but just in case, Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal's father was the Steipler, a goin, a tzaddik, boki b'chol Torah kuloi nigle v'nista, unbelievable yid. Anyway, so at one point in his life, he unfortunately got drafted into the Russian army. Now, to be in the Russian army was not a simple thing. It wasn't easy at all to be in these places. My grandfather, in fact, spent years in Siberia. These were not, warm destinations. These were difficult winter days with brutal work. And the Steipler at one time was drafted into the Russian army, and he was given the task to stand guard outside in the freezing cold in Russia and just guard the area. Now, it happened to be a Friday night. It was a Friday night that he was asked to stand guard outside in the freezing Russian winter. Now, the soldier that had the shift before him, before he took over, had this beautiful, thick, warm, geschmacker coat. Like a really good geschmacker coat. Like inside was like lined with fur. It was gorgeous, it was warm, it was delicious, it was yummy. But there was a big problem. And that soldier, when he left his post, he wasn't a yid, he didn't care less. He hung that coat on the tree that was by the post where the soldiers are guarding. Now the Steipler gets there and he looks at it and he's like, oh no, what am I going to do now? It is absolutely freezing. It's the middle of winter in Russia. But there's a coat that's hanging on the tree, which I'm not allowed to remove. Because there's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch that if something is on a tree, you cannot be mishtamish bi'ilon. Not now, we're not discussing those halachas, but there's such a halacha that you're not allowed to use a tree for any personal benefit. Therefore, you're not able to take off something that was previously hung from a tree. It's a d'Rabbanan, there's a lot of colors. I'm sure the Rabbeinu Shalom will be okay with it. Those heterim, God lets, he understands me. He thinks it's okay. Well, the Steipler didn't have any of those heterim, and he said, I'm not going to take off that coat. Now, brutal, cold Russian night, through the Friday night, and he's got the whole shift till the next morning. What's he going to do? There's no way, he's going to freeze to death, chas v'shalom. What's he meant to do? So the Steipler had only one eitzah. And he said, listen, there's no way that I can manage the whole night. It's just not going to happen. Forget about it. But I could probably do 10 minutes. 10 minutes I probably could do. 10 minutes I could do. So he said, for the next 10 minutes, I'm not going to take off the coat, I'll be okay. If I see that I'm going to freeze to death, I'll take it off, because P'ruach Nefesh, I'll figure out a heta. 10 minutes I'll manage. After 10 minutes, he's like, okay, I'm doing okay. Another 10 minutes. And so he went through the whole night. Rabbi said there's a letter from the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish writes in Igeretz, the Chazon Ish, and look at it up, letter 3, Gimel. He writes that so many times people stop doing things or prevent themselves from doing something great because it's just too big in front of them. I just can't manage. I'm just not going to get there. I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to be successful. I'm never going to manage it. So therefore, I'm just not going to start. The trick is like the Steipler, is to take little pieces. And when you take little pieces, and the Chazon Ish writes this, how a person has to be a masmid by taking pieces of Torah, time, and little pieces of whatever it is, manageable things, that I could do. That is the key to success in everything, by the way, but for sure when it comes to Torah. Rabbi said, there's a Moedige Gemara. Listen to this Gemara. It's a Gemara in Brochas Daf Ches Amud Aleph. The Gemara says like this. La'olam yashlim odom parshiyosav v'matzibu Shnayim Mikra ve'echad targum. Now 1 minute. We start Sefer Bereshis, right? Came Simchas Torah. We opened up. Chasam Bereshis received. We're still waiting for the Kiddush. I'm sure it's going to come one Shabbos. A Festa Kiddush. Mitzvah Hashem Chasam Bereshis is going to make in Yeshiva a Moedige Kiddush. We're very excited for that. But Akaponim, when they open up the Bereshis, like, whoa! The whole Torah is in front of me. I'm not going to manage this. How am I going to do this? So the Gemara says, La'olam yashlim odom parshiyosav v'matzibu Shnayim Mikra ve'echad targum. that a person is meant to be mashlim, finish, right? If you look at Rabbeinu Yonah, im hatzibur, together with the tzibur, it's almost like that there's a Kriyas HaTorah b'tzibur that we do in shul, Monday, Thursday, Shabbos afternoons, and of course Shabbos morning. That's the Kriyas HaTorah do b'tzibur. But there's also like a private Kriyas HaTorah, and that's called Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. Now the problem is, it's like too much. What do you want me to do? It's a long parshas. It's the whole Torah. How am I going to do this? So the answer is this Chazon Ish. You take little pieces every single day. What can you manage? Now the Gemara says la'olam yashlim, that a person should do this, right? The Levush in Parshas Shemos, ve'elu Shemos b'nei Yisrael Rashi Tevis Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum v'chayiv Adam lave b'Parshas Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. But I want to read to the Lashon Shulchan Aruch because the Gemara says la'olam yashlim, and then when you open up a Shulchan Aruch, all of a sudden, almost like changes the Lashon of the Gemara, which is interesting, and I want to just read it to the Olam because I think it's important. And this is in Reish Pei Hey, it's in Chelik Gimel in Shulchan Aruch. Go look it up in Mishnah Berurah. In Simon Reish Pei Hey, Shulchan Aruch brings in Sif Aleph. Avo Pisha Adam Shemeh Kol Torah Kula Kol Shabbos B'Tzibur. Everyone hears the whole parsha in shul with the tzibur with the Olam. Chayev. How do we translate Chayev again?
Obligated.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll just say it now. Obligated. A person is obligated. You have to likros atzmai b'chol shavua parsha zoyisrael shavua. That week's parsha Shnayim Mikra, twice the Mikra, the Echad Targum, and one time Targum. Maybe we'll speak about that tomorrow. Exactly what that means. How to do it in different ways. Can I use English? What about Rashi? We'll talk about that. But before we get there, it's a chiyuv in Shulchan Aruch. It's a chiyuv in Shulchan Aruch. It's not like a nice thing to do. It's like, if you have time, try to do Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. No. It's a chiyuv. I'll tell you, I spent a beautiful Shabbos this Shabbos with, of course, the boys of Yeshiva. It's galdig to be back here in Etzur for Shabbos with the boys, but I also spent a beautiful Shabbos with my future son-in-law. And I have to tell you, I'm still trying to figure out, by the way, why in Eretz Yisrael they call it Shabbos Gehenim. It's called Shabbos Gehenim, and we called it Shabbos Gan Eden. It was Taka Gan Eden. It was Gavaldik. We had a beautiful time. We farbrang together. We spoke Torah together. It was Moedik. I'll go upon him. So my future son, Baruch Hashem, is a Talmud Muvuk of Rabbi Gamliel Shlita. In fact, he told me that Rabbi Gamliel doesn't have anyone over in his house on Shabbos. Like Shabbos is Kodesh Kedoshim for the Mishpacha. Shabbos and Yom Tov is like only family only. Nobody gets into Rabbi Gamliel Shabbos and Yom Tov. These are times only for the Mishpacha. He told me he one time ate a Yom Tov meal by Rabbi Gamliel. It was unbelievable. But he told me that Rabbi Gamliel told him that Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum is a limud that has to come before any other limud. And in fact, Rabbi Gamliel himself spends over 40 hours a week Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum learning Chumash with Rashi. Over 40 hours a week learning Chumash with Rashi. And he said, Rabbi Gamliel, you can ask him. Again, you can ask my son-in-law, but he said, you can ask Rabbi Gamliel himself. Shnayim Mikra comes before anything. A Yid has to know Chumash. A Yid has to know Chumash. Now, if you remember last week, we spoke a little bit about the idea that Chumash isn't just a storybook. It's not a history book, Chas v'Shalom. It's not what happened to Klal Yisrael, even though it's very geschmack. Right? You got these parashas now. Bereshis, Nayach, Lech Lecha, there's so much going on. Avram Avinu, Yitzchak, it's gavaldik. But that's not what it is. It's much more than that. It's for our lives. It teaches us who we are, what to do in every situation of our lives. Chumash is something very, very important. A person, as the Shulchan Aruch says, has a chiyuv, Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. I'll tell you the lashon of the Rosh. The Rosh has a lashon, have a kikriya, have a kikoira es Shema. It's like reading Kriya Shema. We're dealing with something very, very serious over here. In fact, there's a Shaila who instituted this obligation, this chiyuv for a person to do Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. The Aruch HaShulchan says clearly it was Moshe Rabbeinu that was Masakin, it was Moshe Rabbeinu that did it. Others want to say that it was already a time before that. The reason, of course, the Chinuch says is because a person has to become a Baki in Torah. Now, how do you do it? We're going to speak in the next few days how to do Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. But the basic idea is, again, according to many, is each day take a different aliyah. Again, different shitas. We'll talk about it. Maybe we'll have time in the next couple of days. But I'll upon him, just every single day, take a little piece. What's it going to take you? 10, 15 minutes. Open up a Chumash. We have art school here. We have English. Not only will Makayim Halachos and Shulchan Aruch. By the way, also my future son-in-law told me that Rabbi Gamliel, as we know, is a Kabbalist, right? He's into Kabbalah, right? He's a Makubal, as they call him. He's a Makubal. He doesn't act like everything he does is Al Pei Halachos and Shulchan Aruch. even though he knows Zoya, he knows Kabbalah cold, everything he does is Al Pi Shulchan Aruch. A Yid has to live with the Shulchan Aruch. Live like a Yid. He spoke about it here in El, if you remember. First thing a Yid has to do, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You know Halacha? This Halacha in Shulchan Aruch. Do you keep it? Do you not keep it? Simple as that. There's no gray area. This is Rabbi Yisrael Gavaldik. So I'll tell you, some want to say that this mitzvah is Takonis Ezra. Some want to say that it's already for Moshe Rabbeinu. Whatever it is, I will tell you the Gemara tells us a Gavaldik scholar. Okay, Rabbi Yisrael Mordecai scholar. Listen to the scholar because it's a Gemara. The Gemara tells us the scholar. The Gemara in Brochas Daf Ches tells us that if you do Shnayim Mikra ve'echad targum, ma'arichin lo yolav v'shnoisav, that means you have a longer life. You want to have a scholar to live a long life? Shnayim Mikra ve'echad targum. I think the Marshal says Pshat because people think, oh, what do you mean? I've got to learn Gemara, I've got to learn Halacha, I've got so much to do. I don't have time to learn Shnayim Mikra ve'echad targum. I'm busy. Baruch Hashem. No, you don't lose any time. You get a longer life when you learn Shnayim Mikra ve'echad targum. Shnayim Mikra ve'echad targum is a gewaldige, unbelievable thing. In fact, it's brought down. The Levush says the reason why we need to do it is to become a baki in the Torah. However, the chinuch and the Akdama, when he brings it, he says the reason is because the chiyuv of Torah is not only to listen to it, it's also to learn it. And the way to listen to it is alidei kriyas HaTorah. And the way to learn it is 3 times the way the Torah was given: Sinai, Oyel Moed, and Arvei Moed. Which means that's why we do it 3 times. Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. Again, in the coming days, but as Hashem, I hope to discuss the halachos of what can I do, what can I not do, what can I get away with. Maybe we'll discuss that. But there are other scholars, and we'll finish with this. It's brought down in the Yesod V'Shorish V'Avoda, in Sharash Shmini, in Perik Aleph. Some Sofer, by the way, in Chulin, Daf Chov Chesam Abayis, says a very similar Yesod. He talks about the inyan that happens, the tikkunim that goes on in Shemayim when a person does Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum, and how important it is not to read it just like fly through it. It's important for a person to read it properly, and through reading Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum, it's mevatel klipas noiga. For anyone that's familiar with anything, any Hasidic Sfarim, even Tanya, if you're familiar with any of these beautiful Gavaldik Sfarim, you'll talk about Klipas Noiga as the Klipa that has all sorts of Tomei Dikar Zachen and whatever. To mevatel the klipa, Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. And not only that, there are also many other scholars as well, as we mentioned from the Gemara. You have a longer life from that. Not only that, the Madani Yontov al Harosh in Brochas Perik Aleph Siman Ches Ois Hey tells us, Yezoicha Techayim Toivim. If you want to have a good Geschmack life, Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. It's also a scholar, the Oizerua, by the way, brings us in Shabbos Simon Mem Beis. He brings a Medrash Azariah, where the Oizerua says a scholar for Yiras Shamayim. You want to get Yiras Shamayim? Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum, Rabbi say. So we're dealing with a very unbelievable mitzvah, a chiyuv in Shulchan Aruch, and something that is manageable for all of us. And just imagine, we should have spoken about this right before Bereshis or as we started Bereshis. It's not too late. Right, Parshas Vayera this week, Sunday morning, we can open up a Chumash, whether it's at some point you get during lunchtime, during the evening, whatever it is. Open up a Chumash, Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. Be'ez Hashem, the next couple of days, we shall be able to discuss some more of the halachas that are negeya to this. Have an amazing day.